Welcome everyone back to another Dragon Ball Legends video. My name is DFree. Here today I will be showing you guys some general team building tips when it comes to this man here specifically. Hope you guys enjoy, of course. This is a brand new series that I will be doing on the channel. Yes, I have done a ton of different guides in the past, especially like when the game was new, but I've done a ton of guides in the past, especially like team build guides and stuff. If you want to check those out, I'll leave them down below. But one thing I want to do, and let me know how you guys feel about this, is I would be interested in doing a brand new series where every time there is a new character, I show you guys some team building tips and tricks and just general things to consider as far as that character is concerned. If you guys want to see that, no like goal, show support by hitting that like button though if you guys enjoy the video when you're done with it. So, to begin, we have Gogeta here. These are the stats for this man currently. I need to pull a dupe. Hopefully I do. But trust me, he's phenomenal regardless. So there we go. These are the stats currently before and after transformation. He is a ranged-based character. He holds one of each type of card, aside from the other types of cards, of course, but one strike and one blast. And his kit is geared towards trying to basically just destroy the opponent with blast cards and with his special move. He even draws one. So phenomenal unit. I think he's going to be really good in the game for a very long time. Now, I've pre-built several different teams that I want to go ahead and show you guys. So to begin, we're going to start off by going over them, and I'll kind of give you guys some little ideas for different characters here and there. But I want to point out the disclaimers really quick before we proceed. Now, everybody's box is different. I feel like that's necessary to address, right? Because I might say use so character, but you don't have that character in general, or you don't have him 5-star, and maybe that's relevant, and maybe you need a replacement option. I can't cover every single scenario for every single player, so it's going to be up to you to determine what you think is best with some of what I say in this video. Now, I'm by no means also saying that my builds are the best builds ever. It's up to you, your playstyle, what you consider to be better, what you want to use, things of that nature. But again, just a general blueprint. So right here we have a Saiyan/Super Saiyan team. This team is predicated on utilizing Saiyan buffs and also applying just general Super Saiyan buffs too. So when you look at Gogeta, you may be like, wait a minute, he doesn't get Super Saiyan buffs. Bardock and Super Vegeta don't help him. Well, they do when he transforms. Post-transformation, you see he does actually pick up those Super Saiyan buffs. Super Vegeta's buff is applicable, and Bardock's buff is applicable. So once you do transform, the other two buffs do kick in, resounding in a whopping 6 buffs on this character specifically. And a lot of the builds that I will show you guys will feature 4, 5, or 6 buffs as eligible buffs for the characters. And you do take the top row, basically. You still want to abuse Bardock and his switching. Sometimes you can bring Super Vegeta as one of your options. And then other than that, Broly is insanely good. He's Broly, right? So why not, right? So you do bring the top 3. And then Bardock and SS3 Goku are mainly just bench units, which, you know, SS3 Goku occasionally can be used. I guess if you feel the need to bring him versus, I don't know, whatever team, Mono Green, if you ever see that, or Regen, right? Mainly Mono Green, even though he's anti-Regen, he doesn't have a lot of buffs. Just his and Raditz's, which in a lot of scenarios, to be honest, is good if you are, is good enough if you're able to manage it. So nonetheless, though, that is what I would consider an option for this team. Now, when it comes down to what you could replace for certain units if you don't have them, one thing I want to have you guys consider is that when it comes to Gogeta, he's fortunate he buffs his own blast attack. Broly as well, prior to 5-star, which I'm sure a lot of you guys don't have him 5-star, will be buffing blast attack. If you have Broly and Gogeta, that's enough, I would say, of a blast attack boost support for your team, right? And the thing about this team specifically, too, is SS3 Goku and Bardock don't offer strike attack until 5-star. They both offer their defensive boosts until 5-star, in which, in that scenario, maybe your team completely changes the outlook. You know, you can still use Bardock because he's still phenomenal regardless, but maybe you don't run SS3 Goku. Maybe you actually run a character that can buff strike attack instead if you don't have the Goku 5-star or whatever the case is. So Broly and Gogeta are fine pre-5-star. Bardock, he's still fine because he's still a main unit that you would use, and his abilities are still insanely good. You would prefer, obviously, for him to get the double boost, but if not, it's fine. Super Vegeta, fortunately, does not need either. He is good regardless when it comes to Super Vegeta. He is able to buff critical and blast attack, which again is also insanely good for Gogeta. You have enough of that, so I would consider in the last couple of spots applying a strike attack booster in that scenario right there. So this Goku is offering 27% at 7-star. Other viable options would be the red Goku here, who also is a Super Saiyan, I guess, if you need a red Super Saiyan, right? Of course, other options are still the tried and true, like, you know, Gogeta, Super Gogeta is an option there if you want to use him. Keep in mind he will not be buffing Bardock or Broly. That is perfectly fine, though. if you want to apply him. He himself is an insanely good damage dealing unit, and he also will apply strike attack, pre 5-star, and strike attack and defense to himself and Super Saiyan Gogeta as well. So you do have that option. So consider that as one of the things that you can do. It just kind of comes down to what you want to do. And I'm going to generally have an HP booster on the team. And if you don't know, the units that don't make it into battle, they're still relevant. They do still apply their buffs. So that's why a lot of people will run the EX Raditz and stuff like that. But if you want to do something where you drop him and just add in 2 more general support buffers or whoever, that's perfectly fine. Like, there are a lot of different options that are applicable here, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through them. But whoever you want to put in these spots, they work perfectly fine. Like, if you need another blast attack unit for whatever reason, right, which in this scenario you shouldn't, I would say go double strike in this scenario and do something like this. And if you don't have Super Vegeta, well, you can replace him for another blast attack unit like Majin Vegeta or whoever. That's up to you ultimately. Also, Green Bardock is a strike attack supporter, just general things like that. It just kind of comes down to limit breaks that are applicable to you and what you do or do not have. So another team that we're going to take a look at, let me get out of here, is Blue Purple. So the Super Saiyan Gogeta is incredibly splashable. He is incredibly good on Mono Yellow as their color counter blue unit, because typically on Mono teams, you do want to have at least 1 color counter check and stuff like that. So ultimately, this team right here is one of the best ones he can be on. He's also, again, very good on other Mono teams as well, or alongside specific units. Like, he's good alongside Kaioken Goku, because Kaioken Goku post 5-star does offer a buff to Blue and Sun family, which allows to just kind of bridge some gaps between the Goku units and Gogeta. In this scenario, that's what I'm utilizing here. It just comes down to that type of stuff. But ultimately, he's incredibly splashable, excuse me. And Mono teams are incredibly good in this game if used properly and built properly. A lot of times they do require, just for the record, a lot of limit breaks, but nonetheless I wanted to show it as an option. Blue is one of the teams that he is able to be on, so you know, Blue can go multiple ways. Ultimately, I didn't have this Goku on my team. I wound up putting him on in the last second, so I had another buffer for the Broly and the SS3 Goku, because I considered the top row to be the main team. Now, you could do something like Deborah or Android 18 Blue type in that spot, or Blue Krillin if you are going to go more blue, because typically you only run 1 purple, which would be Broly, but I decided to put SS3 Goku on there because, again, the double buff post 5-star is incredibly good, but you can also drop both of those units. Even if Kaioken's not 5-star, it does not matter on a team like this, and then in the last couple of spots, either do something like this. Well, to be fair, everybody should have these options. They're really good too, but I'm going to use better options, right? So you can do stuff like this, in which Gogeta's getting strike attack and blast attack from Deborah and from Android 18. So, and another thing about that is Android 18 is one of the best possible units you can use versus red hybrids specifically, but hybrids in general, but red hybrids specifically, right? So stuff like this is an option. Now, do consider that if you do that, you have Broly here, who's only getting, again, a couple of links, or a couple of Z ability boosts, which is good enough for Broly, I would say. But again, that's why I said in the beginning, it comes down to playstyle, right? Because you also could go this, drop here, and then bring back in, which I think actually was my initial team, to be fair. And then Broly all of a sudden is a lot more supported, right? He does have access to 4 different Z abilities, and typically with my playstyle, I like to have 4 different Z abilities applicable at any moment. So actually it was a little different because I did choose to go double purple. So that's just kind of up to you and your playstyle, right? But initially I would bring the top row. And then of course, since we're using so many of those Saiyans, you do have EX Raditz making another appearance. So this is generally just a blue-purple Saiyan team for all intents and purposes. But we do also have general blue support from Kaioken. And of course, you could just make it a team where it's still Saiyans, basically, right? Like, you can literally just slide some of these units in and out and all of a sudden have basically the same team that I just showed you guys on the other slide. This is what I mean when I say there's a lot of bleed between teams, and Gogeta is just a very splashable unit. There's a lot of different scenarios he's good in. So let's take a look at a movies team example. So before we actually do that, though, again, same principles apply here. You do want to make sure that you do not neglect blast attack boosts, because the way that the game calculates damage for your ultimates and stuff, you want to make sure you have as many different varying boosts as possible for offense. And Gogeta's a blast unit. He's a range type. You want to make sure you have that, despite the fact that he excels at strike and blast due to his stats. But regardless, you know, same thing. You would want to swap out. You don't want to have too many, like I said. So you would want to make sure you consider options like Majin Vegeta. Again, I'm going to keep pushing him because I do think he's a good option now again as an option that you would put on teams, right? So there you go. And then Hercule, if you want, is extra extra good with Gogeta. They synergize well. That's something I'm working on. I'll save that for another day. I know it sounds funny, but you've just got to trust me. So anyways, when it comes down to that, that's basically it. Now, let's go back and take a look at the movies team. So movies, this one's a little bit easier to build because of the fact that there's just a lot of general support. Now, one thing I want to get across is that there is no movie tag. It's just episode sagas from the movies. So you do have these characters getting access to the buffs from the buffers that buff episode sagas from the movies. I still get confusion about that. There is no movies tag. It's just buffing the episode the character's from. So in this scenario, we have Gogeta and Gogeta getting 6 buffs each. That's really good. And again, Red Gogeta is still incredibly good, so you would use him, of course. So you do have the Blue Gogeta, Red Gogeta, the Broly, the Bojack, and the Double Coolers as supports. Now, this team here is one that I need to stress limit breaks on yet again because your options do change. This guy here, we're going to take a look at Sagas from the movies really quick. So these are at the top very briefly. All of your buffers, you have Blue Broly, Paikuan, Fury Broly, all these characters here. These are all the characters that can get buffs from said buffers. Sagas and the movie characters, they don't all buff, you know, stuff like that. Because this guy buffs Saiyan defense, yada yada. So, what would we do? So, we have Cooler here. Pre-5-star, he's good actually. Blast Attack, I already talked about the bonus to Blast Attack. It's just, they're pushing blast units. What can you do? So, ultimately, Blast Attack and defense. Mine currently is actually 7-star, so he's 30% to both stats. That's incredibly good on a team like this, even if you never actually use the Cooler, because again, bench units do get support. And then we go back over to the Sagas list. We have Strike Attack and defense at 5-star, but pre-5-star, it's just strike defense. That's unimpressive. So we're going to eliminate him from the team so I can kind of show you guys different options. But just keep in mind, it's, again, strike attack and defense post 5-star. And then we take a look at Bojack, who actually mine even isn't 5-star yet. Bojack is quietly one of the best units that's incredibly underrated, like probably top 2 or 3 underrated units in the game. He is incredibly good, but will never get the respect he deserves. But nonetheless, blast defense only pre-5-star. Blast Attack does jump in post 5-star. And Broly, by the way, also, even though he excels at both, also is a range type character, so keep that in mind. But nonetheless, if you don't want the defense specific buffs, right? Because if I have to choose in most cases, I will choose personally to get access to the attack boost. So nonetheless, we're going to bounce all of those characters off. Now let's take a look. Everybody should have this guy. Everybody. He is a generic movie support strike attack buffer. Incredibly good for every other movie character. Incredibly good. Now, again, I'll say it one more time. Option if you want him. If not, that's fine. If you're trying to do pure movies, here's the deal. If you're trying to do pure movies, to where you don't utilize Saiyans, because again, we're back to where you have options like bleed through. You go back and like, okay, well, I can grab any character I want from the Saiyan pool and be specifically get them and be good off, right? So what I would consider then is Thouser. Thouser has a strike attack buff outright. And then if you are actually somebody that has those other characters, you like said other characters, you want to consider using Bojack and stuff like that, I would still consider that, because I did just mention how he's underrated and good and just generally underappreciated, right? You can still put him on the team even though you're only getting the defense boost. I'm just trying to help you guys get the most synergy for my top row of units ultimately, right? And these units want as much offense as possible because they're basically nukes. And to end it all out, though, I would still strongly suggest an HP booster in the last spot. But again, if you're going pure movies, I would just put back any of the other characters. Blue Broly, Cooler, Blue Cooler, Bojack, or a purple specific support like Turles or One-Hand Spirit Bomb Goku can go in that last spot and you'd be fine. So, or again, you can actually bring Blue Turles. He's a Saiyan supporter, right? Or Blue Goku, he's Saiyan supporter, right? So it's up to you. But ultimately, guys, that's basically it. Last little thing I wanted to show was fusions. Now, this team needs more support, but they're really good. They have a lot of Z ability boosts and stuff. So both Gogetas and Gotenks are all... And let me retroactively just kind of go backwards here. Any team that you have double Gogeta on, you would want to consider Gotenks for your last spot. If you have him 5-star... I didn't mention him at any point because I entirely forgot about him, even though I meant to mention him. If you have Gotenks in general, I would consider him. because it's blast attack, and I've already talked about that. And any moment where I mention Majin Vegeta, for example, Gotenks can go there. But anyways, 5-star it's strike and blast attack to Fusion Warriors, which is incredibly good. Like, he's going to be one of the best bench buffers for this team ever in general, as far as like having the Gogetas, especially double Gogeta. So you do have access to that. And then you have the green Gotenks, who's free, who's strike defense. I initially thought he was strike attack, but nonetheless, you are still picking up 5 buffs pre-transformation, and then you do pick up the Super Vegeta buff for critical and blast attack, while still having the Raditz, and you're good to go with that. So ultimately, this is an idea for fusions. If in any of these teams you don't have the red Gogeta, he can be substituted for another character like Fury Broly. Fury Broly is almost a seamless transition because of the fact he's also a red movie supporter and movie character, also very good on the Switch. So ultimately, thank you all for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Leave that like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch all of you guys in the next one.